My name is Marcus Chen, and I'm 29 years old. I still remember the exact sound my laptop made when I slammed it shut after my director, Patricia Williams, finished her presentation to the entire engineering team. As you can see from these metrics, she said, clicking to a slide that showed our department's declining performance, some team members are clearly not pulling their weight. When dead weight drags down the whole ship, tough decisions have to be made. Her eyes found mine across the conference room. 23 engineers, product managers, and executives watched as she delivered the killing blow. Marcus, perhaps you'd like to explain to everyone why your last 3 projects have been such spectacular failures. The room fell silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming, someone shifting in their chair, the distant ping of a Slack notification. 3 years I'd been at TechFlow Solutions. 3 years of 70-hour weeks, of debugging code at 2 a.m., of having my solutions implemented without my name attached to them. And now, in front of everyone who mattered in the company, I was being painted as the department's problem. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand something. Have you ever had someone take credit for your breakthrough, your late-night eureka moment, your elegant solution to an impossible problem? Have you ever watched someone else get promoted using your work as their stepping stone? I'm asking because what I'm about to share isn't just about workplace politics, it's about what happens when the person everyone underestimates holds the keys to the kingdom. I never intended to become TechFlow's most valuable invisible asset. Fresh out of Stanford with a computer science degree, I joined TechFlow as a junior backend developer with dreams of building systems that would scale to millions of users. The company was in its growth phase, 500 employees, aggressive expansion plans, and a product that was gaining serious traction in the enterprise market. Patricia Williams was my direct supervisor, a 15-year veteran who'd climbed the ranks from QA tester to engineering director. She had the kind of confidence that fills rooms and the political instincts that navigate corporate hierarchies. "You're here to learn, Marcus," she told me during my first week. "Keep your head down, do solid work, and good things will happen." I believed her. So when she asked me to take on additional responsibilities, just until we hire more senior developers, I said yes. When she suggested I mentor the new junior hires, "You have great teaching instincts," I agreed. When she requested that I document my solutions for the team's knowledge base, "We need better internal resources," I spent my weekends creating comprehensive guides. The pattern established itself slowly. I'd solve a complex database optimization problem, document the solution, and present it to Patricia. She'd review it, ask clarifying questions, and then present it to the senior leadership team as department progress. My name appeared in the technical documentation, buried in the contributors section, while Patricia's name topped every executive summary. "This is how you build a career," she explained when I tentatively asked about getting more visibility. "You master the technical work first, then you learn the business side. I'm protecting you from having to worry about politics while you develop your skills." The revelation came during our Q3 planning meeting. Patricia stood before the entire engineering organization, presenting our roadmap for the next quarter. Slide after slide showcased initiatives I'd designed, problems I'd solved, architectures I'd built. But every solution was presented as the team's work under my guidance, or strategic initiatives I've developed. The breaking point was slide 47, Dynamic Load Balancing Solution, a Patricia Williams innovation. I'd spent 6 months developing that system, working through weekends, debugging edge cases that kept me up until 4 a.m. The solution had reduced our server costs by 40% and improved response times by 60%. It was the kind of breakthrough that gets engineers promoted to senior positions. But there was Patricia, explaining her approach to the CTO, fielding technical questions with answers I'd written in my documentation, receiving congratulations for innovation that had consumed half a year of my life. After the meeting, I approached her privately. "Patricia, I think there might have been some confusion in the presentation. The load balancing solution, I developed that system." She looked genuinely puzzled. "Marcus, you're part of the team. Team wins are everyone's wins. I thought you understood that." But my name wasn't mentioned at all. "The CTO thinks you personally architected the solution." "Because I guided the process. I provided the strategic direction. You handled the implementation, which was excellent work, but implementation follows strategy." She smiled in a way that was probably meant to be encouraging. "Don't worry about credit. Focus on the learning opportunity." That night, I did something I'd never done before. I logged into our version control system and ran analytics on code commits across all our major projects. What I found changed everything. The data was undeniable. Over the past 3 years, I'd written 73% of the core infrastructure code that powered our main product. My commits solved 89% of the critical performance issues. My architectural decisions were being used by teams I'd never even worked with directly. But more importantly, I discovered something that made my stomach drop. Patricia had been having regular one-on-one meetings with the CTO, presenting detailed technical reports about our department's innovations. I'd never seen these reports, but I recognized every solution, every optimization, every breakthrough, all my work, repackaged as strategic initiatives under her leadership. I spent the next week quietly documenting everything. Screenshots of commit histories, email threads where I'd proposed solutions, Slack conversations where I'd explained technical concepts to other teams. I created a comprehensive timeline that showed the gap between my actual contributions and Patricia's public presentations. The picture that emerged was staggering. I wasn't just undervalued, I was essentially running the technical operations of a 100-person engineering department while being treated as a mid-level implementer. Armed with this evidence, I requested a meeting with Patricia. We sat in her office, the walls lined with awards for engineering excellence and innovation leadership that now felt like monuments to theft. I've been doing some analysis, I began, opening my laptop. I wanted to understand my actual impact on the department's success. For the next 20 minutes, I walked through my findings. Patricia's expression shifted from polite interest to concern to something approaching panic as I showed her the data. "Marcus," she interrupted halfway through, "what exactly are you trying to accomplish here?" "I'm trying to understand why my contributions aren't being recognized. I'm trying to figure out how to get the visibility I need to advance my career." "Your career is advancing. You're learning, you're growing." "I'm doing senior architect work for junior developer pay. I'm solving problems that save the company millions while getting credit for basic implementation tasks." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "That's a very transactional way to think about teamwork, Marcus. We succeed together or we fail together. But we're not failing together. When projects succeed, you get the recognition. When they fail, like the 3 projects you mentioned in today's meeting, I get blamed. Those projects failed because of implementation issues. Those projects failed because you promised features I told you weren't technically feasible in the given time frame. I have the emails where I explained the technical limitations. You chose to ignore them." The room fell silent. Patricia stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. She was calculating, reassessing, trying to determine if I was a threat. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I want accurate attribution for my work. I want to be included in strategic discussions about systems I'm building. I want compensation that reflects my actual impact on the company. And if those things don't happen?" I closed my laptop. "Then I guess we'll find out how the department performs without me." That was Tuesday. By Friday, Patricia had her answer ready, delivered in front of the entire engineering team. "As you can see from these metrics," she said, her presentation showing declining team performance, "some team members are clearly not pulling their weight. When dead weight drags down the whole ship, tough decisions have to be made." The dead weight was me. The spectacular failures were the 3 projects where I'd been overruled on technical decisions, then blamed when those decisions led to predictable problems. "Marcus, perhaps you'd like to explain to everyone why your last 3 projects have been such spectacular failures." I sat there, feeling the weight of 23 pairs of eyes, knowing that half the people in the room were running code I'd written, using systems I'd designed, benefiting from optimizations I'd discovered. And I was being called dead weight. Something crystallized in that moment. Not anger, something colder and more focused. I reached into my backpack and pulled out a tablet I'd prepared for exactly this scenario. I stood up slowly, walked to the front of the room, and placed the tablet on the table next to Patricia's laptop. "For anyone interested in the actual metrics," I said quietly, "everything's documented there. Code commits, performance improvements, architectural decisions, and the email chains showing who made what technical recommendations." Then I walked out. I made it to my desk and started packing my personal items. A small succulent plant, a Stanford coffee mug, a mechanical keyboard I'd bought with my own money. I didn't touch the laptop, that belonged to TechFlow. I had backups of important personal projects stored elsewhere. I was halfway across the parking lot when I heard rapid footsteps behind me. Marcus. Marcus, wait. I turned to see Richard Gonzalez, our CEO, jogging toward me in his expensive suit, slightly out of breath. At 52, he usually projected calm executive authority. Now he looked genuinely alarmed. You can't just leave, he said, catching his breath. We need to talk about this. I believe I can leave, Richard. I'm an at-will employee, and I'm exercising my will. The tablet, what you showed them, he paused, struggling with how to address it. How long have you been documenting everything? 3 years. Every commit, every solution, every architectural decision. Would you like to guess what percentage of our core infrastructure I've personally written? His face went pale. Marcus, I had no idea about the attribution issues. If there's been miscommunication about your contributions. Miscommunication. I almost laughed. Richard, your engineering director has been presenting my work as her own innovations for 3 years. She just publicly humiliated me for the failure of projects where she overruled my technical guidance. That's not miscommunication. Come back inside. We'll sort this out. No. I started walking toward my car again. I'm done sorting out other people's ethical problems. Marcus, please. Just tell me what you want. I stopped and turned around. I want the same thing every engineer wants, to be valued for my actual contributions, not treated as disposable while my work drives the company's success. Richard ran his hand through his hair. What would it take to fix this? It's not about fixing it, Richard. It's about the fact that it happened at all. Patricia knew exactly what she was doing. Your entire senior leadership team has been celebrating innovations I created while I sat in junior-level meetings taking notes. How much of our core system did you build? Enough that you should be very concerned about me walking away. His expression shifted to something approaching panic. 30 minutes. Give me 30 minutes in my office. Please. I looked at him, really looked at him. Richard Gonzalez, CEO of a $50 million company, standing in a parking lot begging a junior developer not to quit. The power dynamic had shifted so completely that I almost felt sorry for him. 20 minutes, I agreed. Richard's office occupied the corner of the building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I'd been there exactly once before, during my initial interview. Now I sat across from his desk while he frantically reviewed the documentation I'd compiled. Jesus Christ, Marcus, he muttered, scrolling through commit histories. You wrote the entire user authentication system? And the payment processing integration, and the real-time analytics pipeline, and the auto-scaling infrastructure. Patricia told me she was leading these initiatives. Patricia doesn't know how to write code. She reviews pull requests and attends meetings. Which is fine, that's management. But she's been presenting herself as the technical architect of systems she couldn't modify if her life depended on it. Richard kept scrolling. This performance optimization, we presented this to investors as a key competitive advantage. I designed it during a weekend hackathon. Took me about 18 hours to implement and test. The load balancing solution? 6 months of work. I have the Git history showing every iteration, every bug fix, every performance improvement. Richard closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair. What do you want, Marcus? A promotion? Patricia's job? Name your price. The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on the injustice of the situation that I hadn't really considered what resolution would look like. I want honesty, I said finally. I want an engineering culture where people are valued for their actual contributions, not their political skills or their ability to take credit for other people's work. That's ambitious. So is building a company on stolen valor. Richard winced. That's not what, he stopped himself. Okay, that's exactly what happened. How do we fix it? You start by acknowledging it. Publicly. Then you restructure the engineering organization to reflect who's actually doing the work. And Patricia? That's not my decision to make. But I won't work for someone who's built their career on plagiarizing my contributions. Richard was quiet for a long moment. The board meeting is next week. We're presenting our technical roadmap to potential investors. Based on what I'm seeing here, our entire presentation is based on your work. Correct. If you walk away now, we're fucked. Also correct. He stood up and walked to the window. What if I offered you Patricia's position? I don't want to manage people. I want to build systems and get credit for building them. Chief Technology Officer? Now I was genuinely surprised. Richard, I'm 29 years old with 3 years of experience. You're 29 years old with 3 years of experience building systems that power our entire business. Age doesn't matter if you can do the job. And you think I can do the job? I think you've been doing the job for 3 years while someone else got paid for it. The announcement came the following Monday. Richard called an all-hands meeting, something that usually happened only for major product launches or company-wide changes. We're restructuring our engineering organization, he began, to better reflect the actual contributions of our team members. He explained the new structure with the kind of corporate speak that made dramatic changes sound like natural evolution. When he announced my promotion to CTO, the room erupted in surprised murmurs. Additionally, Richard continued, we're implementing new policies around technical attribution and contribution tracking. Every significant architectural decision will be documented with clear authorship. Every major optimization will be attributed to its actual creator. Across the room, Patricia sat with a frozen smile, her new title, Senior Project Manager, noticeably absent from the announcement. After the meeting, several colleagues approached me with congratulations mixed with confusion. Dude, I had no idea you were behind the authentication system, said Jake from the front-end team. I've been telling people that was brilliant architecture. Thanks, I replied. I'm just glad it's finally working properly. Patricia appeared at my elbow. Congratulations, Marcus, she said, her voice carefully neutral. I hope there are no hard feelings about the misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, I replied. There's just accountability. The transition wasn't seamless. Suddenly being responsible for technical strategy instead of just implementation required skills I had to develop quickly. But the difference was striking. Now when I designed solutions, my name was on them. When I solved complex problems, I got credit for the solutions. More importantly, I started seeing similar patterns throughout the company. Other junior developers whose innovations were being claimed by their managers. Designers whose creative work was being presented by people who couldn't use Photoshop. Analysts whose insights were being packaged as executive strategy. I instituted a new policy. Every technical decision had to be documented with clear authorship. Every major contribution had to be attributed to its actual creator. Every innovation had to be presented by the person who developed it. The results were immediate. Team morale improved dramatically. People started proposing more creative solutions when they knew they'd get credit for them. Junior developers began taking on more challenging projects when they realized their work wouldn't be stolen. Patricia struggled with the transition. Without the ability to claim credit for other people's work, her actual contributions became visible and limited. She was good at project management and team coordination, but she wasn't the technical innovator she'd presented herself as. 3 months after the restructuring, she requested a meeting with me. We sat in the same conference room where she'd once humiliated me in front of the entire team. This new structure isn't working for me, she said without preamble. What specifically isn't working? I asked. I can't get recognition for my strategic contributions when every technical decision has to be attributed to individual developers. Strategic contributions should be recognized. But implementing someone else's technical design isn't strategic contribution, it's project management. I've been doing strategy for 15 years. You've been taking credit for other people's strategy for 15 years, I corrected. There's a difference. She stared at me for a moment, and I saw something I'd never seen before, genuine recognition of what she'd been doing. I never meant to take credit for your work, she said quietly. But you did. Repeatedly. For 3 years. I thought I was providing leadership. You were providing your career with accomplishments you hadn't earned. She nodded slowly. I've been offered a position at another company. Same level, better pay. Congratulations. That's probably the best outcome for everyone. Patricia left 2 weeks later. Her replacement was Jennifer Park, a senior developer who'd been consistently undervalued at her previous company. Jennifer's first act was to implement peer review processes that made individual contributions visible to the entire team. 6 months after that humiliating team meeting, I stood in the same conference room presenting our technical roadmap to a group of potential investors. But this time, every innovation was attributed to its actual creator. Every breakthrough was presented by the person who'd achieved it. Our authentication system, I explained, reduced login times by 70% and improved security compliance across all our enterprise clients. The auto-scaling infrastructure automatically adjusts server resources based on real-time usage patterns, reducing costs by 40% while improving performance. The real-time analytics pipeline processes over 10 million events per hour with 99.9% uptime. After the presentation, one of the investors approached me. "Impressive work, Marcus. How long did it take to build these systems?" "About 3 years," I replied. "But they're finally getting the recognition they deserve." The funding round closed successfully, $15 million in Series B funding, largely based on the technical infrastructure I'd built. Richard pulled me aside after the celebration. "You know, that meeting changed everything for us. Not just the funding, but the way we think about recognizing talent." "Good," I said. "No one should have to choose between doing great work and getting credit for it." "Any regrets about how you handled the situation?" I considered the question. "I regret that it took 3 years to stand up for myself. I regret that other people had to suffer the same thing before I addressed it. But I don't regret walking out of that meeting. Even though it was terrifying for the company?" "Especially because it was terrifying for the company. Sometimes the only way to get people's attention is to show them what they have to lose." Today, TechFlow has grown to over 300 employees. We've implemented comprehensive attribution policies, mentorship programs that focus on developing people's careers rather than exploiting their contributions, and leadership training that emphasizes building people up rather than taking credit for their work. The culture change wasn't instant, but it was profound. When people know they'll be recognized for their contributions, they contribute more. When managers know they can't steal credit, they focus on actually managing. When companies value honesty over politics, they build better products and retain better people. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're the person doing the work while someone else gets the credit, document everything. Know your value. Build relationships with people who matter. And remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. Because the people who've been underestimating you might just chase you down the hallway, begging you to stay. The greatest victory isn't destroying the people who undervalued you. It's building something so undeniably successful that they're forced to acknowledge their mistake. It's creating a system where everyone gets credit for their actual contributions. It's proving that talent and hard work matter more than politics and credit stealing. And sometimes, it's watching the CEO of a $50 million company run across a parking lot, desperate to keep the person they'd been ignoring from walking away. Have you ever been in a situation where your contributions were overlooked or stolen? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Because sometimes the most important thing we can do is recognize our own value, even when others don't.